thank you so much for having me. And I'm sorry that I could not be there in person. I love traveling to Korea. I've been to Korea several times this year, and I enjoyed every time. So I look forward to visiting in person very soon. Um, and thank you, Tony, for the introduction. I don't speak Korean, but I could follow some of the words like convolutional neural networks and LSTM. So it was entertaining for me to listen to that too. I'm going to tell you about voice AI and the future of voice AI and a little bit of history behind it. It's an area I've been working on for the past 17 years. And when I was starting my PhD program at Stanford University, I had to choose my thesis. And I thought about it and I did some research and I made two conclusions. The first conclusion was voice AI will happen. So by voice AI, I'm not talking about just voice commands like open the door. I'm talking about talking to everything around us, and those things will talk back to us. So we have a conversation with robots and appliances and cars and mobile phones and refrigerators, and everything around us will be intelligent and voice enabled. And I was obviously inspired by movies like Star Wars and Star Trek. But sometimes things you see in movie, you're not sure it will happen or not. But I decided that voice AI will happen. My second conclusion was it will happen within my lifetime. And there are other things that will happen for sure. I think we are for sure going to have a hotel on the moon one day or on Mars. But maybe it will happen within my lifetime, thanks to Elon Musk, or maybe it will not. But I decided that voice AI will happen in the next 20 years, and that was the year 2000. With those two conclusions, I chose my thesis in PhD program at Stanford University to focus on speech recognition and machine learning. And I studied everything there is to study for 5 years, and I reached the state of the art. And then I started the company SoundHound Inc. With my co-founders at Stanford. We worked in a dorm room for about 1 year, and then we raised funding and we moved to an office and we hired our friends and their friends, and now we are about 200 people in 3 countries, in 5 offices, and the company is about 12 years old. So even though we are still a startup, we have the spirit of a startup. We've been around for 12 years, and I will show you the result of our hard work for the past 12 years and our vision for the future today. I'm going to switch to some slides. It will be easier for me to navigate with slides, but I will come back and give you a demonstration also. So just give me a second to share my screen with you. Okay, I hope everyone can see my screen. If there's something wrong somehow, please let me know or send me a message. Otherwise, I'm going to assume that everything is okay. All right, so the future of voice AI. The first thing that I would like to point out is that right now is the year 2017. 10 years ago was 2007. And in 2007, that's when the company Apple launched the iPhone and the Apple App Store. And Google launched Android. And they also had the Google Play Store. And that was a big disruption in the whole industry, whether you were a mobile company or a legacy company or an old company or a device company or a service company. Every company at that time needed to have a strategy in mobile. And there were companies that moved fast. They saw that opportunity that moved fast. Our company was one of them. And those companies created huge value. The examples are, there's a company called WhatsApp that was sold for over $20 billion. And it was purely created based on the App Store ecosystem. and even their value proposition already existed. Text messaging already existed, and big companies like Apple or the mobile carriers operated the text messaging system. So you could even criticize them for creating a new app for sending text messages, but they created huge value only by being a fast mover in the mobile app store. And then slow movers fell behind. You know, a good example is, I mean, there are so many companies that don't even exist anymore. There are companies like Twitter that I feel, even though they're a good company, they did not act quickly in the mobile era. For a long time, Twitter did not even have a mobile app. You had to download third-party apps to access tweets on your mobile phone. And I feel like that hurt them, and they fell behind. So that was the looking back at 2007. Now let's look at 2017, which is this year. Everybody talks about AI. Everybody talks about voice. There are companies like Amazon that added a huge new dimension to their business using the Alexa platform and Amazon Echo. And there are so many other companies that are copying them and following them. And this is the year that every company needs to have a strategy in voice-enabled AI, and fast movers will create huge value and slow movers will fall behind. So it's going to be the same thing. It's not too late for you to consider doing something. I think every product should benefit from voice and artificial intelligence. Now, there's a difference between 10 years ago and now, and I would like to talk about that. So I'm going to the next slide, and you see the green and red text. In 2007, app stores provided a platform for you to launch an app and retain your users, retain your brand, retain your data, and differentiate and innovate. And that was very important. When you downloaded an app from a company, from the Apple App Store, and then use that app, you are not a user of Apple. You're a user of that app. You're a user of that company. And that company has its own brand, and you become their user. With the voice AI platform, what the giants are doing, companies like Google and Amazon, they aim to hijack your users or brands. So if you use companies like Amazon, and if you have a product, then your users, before they can use your product, they have to log into an Amazon account. If they don't have an Amazon account, they have to create one. Then they are not going to talk to your product. They're going to talk to Amazon, right? And that is a huge problem. And most companies that have a successful product hesitate to integrate those platforms. That's why adoption hasn't been as strong as when the app stores were created, and that's a problem. Let's look at the evolution of engagement with technology. In the 80s, we had the first home computer that you could interact with them with mouse and keyboard, and then the first touch screen computing was created in the 90s, but it was really the iPhone and iPad that really took that to the next level with touching and typing and swiping in the 2000s. And today, it's really the voice that's emerging with companies like Siri and by Apple, OK Google, Amazon, Alexa, Cortana, and Hound. Now let's look at some stats. Voice adoption is on the rise. Even 3 or 4 years ago, and I know this really well because I've been working on it for 17 years. Up to 3 or 4 years ago, people had doubts about adoption of voice. You know, I remember when I presented the vision that you would talk to your coffee machine, and a lot of people laughed at me. They said, "Oh, do you really think I want to talk to my coffee machine?" And that was obvious to me, but it wasn't obvious to a lot of people. But right now, nobody questions that anymore. I think everybody sees that voice is really the new interface with the world of IoT or Internet of Things. By 2020, it is predicted that more than half of the searches will be done by voice. That is 1 out of every 2 searches will be done by voice. In 2017, so that's this year, 19% of US online adults who use a smartphone report that they use a voice assistant on a weekly basis. and it's predicted. Well, it's actually past statistics that from 2008 to 2016, Google voice search queries increased by 35 times. So again, voice adoption is on the rise. Let's look at the opportunity of reach. Today, there might be 2 to 3 billion mobile devices around the world, but by 2020, there will be 21 billion IoT devices or connected devices. So it's about 10 times bigger in terms of opportunity of reach. And most IoT devices are voice first or AI first devices. So a product like Amazon Echo, there is no other way to communicate with it. It doesn't have a keyboard, it doesn't have a touch screen, it doesn't have a screen, it doesn't have a mouse. The only way to interact with it is with your voice. And that will be the case for many IoT devices for a number of reasons. One is they just don't have enough room to put an interface. They will be installed in locations that don't have an interface. Also, it is a lot less expensive to voice enable a device than put a touch screen and a keyboard and a mouse and other forms of interface. So 10 times bigger opportunity where voice and AI will be a more compelling interface, sometimes the only interface to these devices. So clearly there is a disruption coming in computing with voice and AI. And if you look at the history, anytime there was a disruption, a few companies created huge value. One company created tremendous value, but there were other winners. So it wasn't just one winner. So in the world of PC, Microsoft created huge value. They continue to be a huge company with tremendous force. In the web era, Google created huge value. In mobile, it was Apple. In social, it was Facebook. And we would like to be the next big thing. So Hound, which is our brand for voice AI under the SoundHound umbrella, we want that to be the next big thing. And that's why we remain independent as an independent company for the past 12 years with a lot of energy to continue to innovate and differentiate ourselves. A little bit about our company. We were incorporated 12 years ago in 2005 by Stanford graduates. We have presence in 8 locations, in 5 offices in 3 countries. So we are in US, Canada, and Japan. In US, we have multiple locations. We are in the process of opening 3 new offices, China, Korea, and Europe. And that's why I've been going to Korea very frequently. Earlier in the history of our company, actually there's a good story there too. So for the first 10 years, our company raised only less than $40 million of funding. So we operated for 10 years, we innovated for 10 years, and we raised less than $40 million. So it was about $38 million that we raised. And most companies these days in Silicon Valley, obviously it's different in Seoul and other parts of the world, but in Silicon Valley, companies raise $40 million and spend it in 6 months. But we innovated for 10 years with less than $40 million, which means we were very careful with our spending allocation. We were also able to generate revenues along the way. So we managed to avoid the need to raise a lot of capital. But earlier this year, we announced a huge round. So we actually have raised more than $100 million or close to $100 million just in the last year or so. And a lot of that investment in the last round came from strategic investors instead of venture capitals. And so strategic investors are basically other companies that are in a different line of business, and they see value in our technology assets. And most of them have committed to use us or are using us or are considering to use us. And with the investments, we create a win-win partnership and alliance. So our investors include Samsung, NVIDIA, Hyundai Motors, HTC, Naver, Korea Telecom, Line, Recruit, Nomura, and others. In fact, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but I think we are the only Silicon Valley company that has raised investments from four Korean giants. So Samsung, Hyundai Motors, Naver, and Korea Telecom all have made an investment in our company. We have proven scale and adoption. We reach over 300 million end users globally. We have 50,000 customers and over 100 patents. We summarize our mission in 2 words: Houndify everything. And you will see what I mean by Houndify. Houndify is our developer platform that allows others to add voice AI to their own product. And we believe that any product can benefit from voice AI, whether it's software or hardware, can benefit from voice AI. So we are going to focus on this mission to Houndify the world. We have 3 products, 2 consumer products and 1 developer platform. So SoundHound is the first product, is a voice-enabled music search. We reach hundreds of millions of users globally. We are on mobile phones. We are in Hyundai cars. We are in almost every country in the world, and we've operated that service for since 2009. Then we have Hound, which is the smartest AI assistant that's powered by Houndify, and I'm going to give you a live demonstration of that today. And then we have the Houndify platform, which is a developer AI platform that enables anyone to seamlessly create smart voice-enabled conversational interface using speech-to-meaning technology, and that's one of our core technologies. We are live. There are companies that just give demos but don't launch anything, or they just give demos in a stage environments behind closed doors, and it takes many years to go from that stage to being live. And when you're live, if you make a claim, you have to prove it and you have to mean it. And we are at that stage, which adds a lot of value in our discussions with our partners. So we are constantly getting reviewed by others. Whatever we show, people can test themselves and verify themselves. And we are always getting favorable reviews. So the headline of this slide is, without a doubt, the smartest and fastest voice-based assistant I've ever seen. And that was published 2 years ago by The Verge. So the Houndify platform that powers Hound and SoundHound and 50,000 other partners has 2 value propositions. It has friendly terms and it has superior technology. Usually one of these is enough to attract adoption. And I've seen cases of this in the industry where a platform has better technology, but they don't have the best terms, but people get attracted to it. Or I've seen platforms that get chosen because they have friendlier terms. Even though if they don't have the best technology, they still get adoption. But we are proud that we can offer our partners both benefits. So we will give you the best technology in the world and at really, really friendly terms. What do we mean by friendly terms? If you Houndify your product, which means if you use our Houndify platform to add voice AI to your product, it is your product, it is your users, and it is your brand. So we are an independent and agnostic platform, and we will not compete with our customers. We are not going to build a car. We are not going to build a refrigerator. We are not going to build an appliance. We are going to help you add voice AI to your product. And we allow our customers to keep their users, keep their brand, keep their data, and create their own customized experience, innovate, and differentiate. And that is very valuable to our partners, and it's something that we really commit to maintaining over the relationship we have with our customers. Now, friendly term is not the only thing. We also have technology advantages. We are a complete solution, so we can provide everything that our customers need. the fastest ASR or automatic speech recognition, the most advanced NLU or natural language understanding with a unique approach that we call deep meaning understanding, a unique technology that we call speech to meaning, which I will explain in a moment. Many domains with the data behind it, collective AI, which I will explain, and so on. Now let's talk about speech to meaning. What everybody else does, this is the traditional approach, is speech to text. So when you speak to another assistant, your speech gets converted to text. Then that text is sent to another technology that converts that to meaning. So if you say, how is the weather in Seoul? First, your voice is transcribed to text, and then that text is sent to another technology. And we saw two problems with that approach that everybody else uses. One is speed. So if you have to do these sequentially, one after another, the user has to wait for the result. They have to wait longer. The other problem is accuracy. So when you do speech to text, you could make a mistake and you have the wrong text. So when you send the wrong text to your next step, it has the wrong input. So it doesn't matter how good it is going to suffer from the wrong input. We believe we are the only company that can convert speech to meaning directly. So we've been able to combine speech recognition and language understanding into one engine. And as you speak to it, in real time, it extracts the meaning from it. And the advantage of that is better speed and better accuracy. And it's very similar to the way the human brain works. The human brain converts speech to meaning directly instead of speech to text. I will show you a demonstration in a moment after my next slide, which is deep meaning understanding. So deep meaning understanding allows us to understand much more complex conversations. When humans talk to each other, they have complex conversations. But when humans talk to technology, they have a lower expectation because they don't think technology can understand complex conversation. But isn't that strange? We should expect computers to understand more complexity because computers can compute faster and they can have more memory. So why is it that we have a lower expectation that only simple questions can be answered by computers? The reason is the approach to natural language understanding that is used traditionally is based on detecting keywords and entities. So when you ask an assistant, show me Chinese restaurants, they detect the keywords of Chinese and keyword of restaurants, and then they give you Chinese restaurants. And that works if the question is simple. But if the question gets a little bit more complex, like show me restaurants excluding Chinese. So you want any kind of restaurant, but you don't want Chinese. In that case, the assistant, it still gives you Chinese restaurant. And so it means it gives you what you do not want, which is very disappointing. So our approach to NLU allows us to understand more complex conversations. So I would like to now switch back to, I don't know if you can see me now. I'm going to give you a demonstration. So this is Hound, which is our personal assistant. It's powered by Houndify. And first, I'm going to show you speech to meaning. So what time is it right now in Seoul, South Korea?
It is 10:48 a.m. the next day in Seoul, South Korea.
So as you can see, almost there is no latency. As soon as I finish talking, it has the answer. And that's because of speech to meaning. What is the time difference between Seoul, South Korea and San Francisco?
San Francisco is 17 hours behind Seoul, South Korea.
Now, when I was trying to set up this call, I wanted to know what time it was in South Korea. So what time is it in Seoul, South Korea when it is 4:30 p.m. in San Francisco, California?
It is 9:30 a.m. the next day in Seoul, South Korea when it is 4:30 p.m. in San Francisco, California.
So as you can see, the speed and accuracy is unmatchable by anything else that is available, and that's thanks to our speech-to-meaning technology. Now let's make it a little bit more complicated. So we have the deep meaning understanding that allows us to understand more complex conversations. So let's try one query that's a little bit more complex. How many days are there between the day after tomorrow and 4 days before the second Thursday of November of 2022?
There are 1,815 days between the day after tomorrow and November 6th, 2022.
So this was a very complex question, calculating a date between some complex dates, which is very difficult to do if you're just doing keyword detection. Now let's do the restaurant search. So obviously I can say, show me restaurants excluding Chinese.
Here are several restaurants excluding Chinese restaurants.
Right, or I can say, show me Asian restaurants excluding Chinese and Japanese, and only show the ones that have more than 4 stars and are open after 9 p.m. on Wednesdays.
Here are several Asian restaurants with more than 4 stars that are open after 9 p.m. on Wednesdays excluding Chinese restaurants, Japanese restaurants, or sushi bars.
So as you can see, I had a very complex search. I had complex criteria. I had exclusion to exclusion. I wanted Asian restaurants, but not Chinese or Japanese. And we don't have to stop there. I can look at the results, and the first one is Korean. Interesting. The second one is Korean. The third one is Korean. The fourth one is Korean. The fifth one is Korean. So maybe I also don't want Korean because I had Korean food recently. So I can say, remove Korean, sort by rating, then by price and by distance, and only show the ones that are good for kids and have a patio.
Okay, showing 5 Asian restaurants sorted by rating, then sorted by lowest price, then sorted by distance that are kid-friendly, and have outdoor seating excluding Korean restaurants.
And let's say I'm driving and I don't have time to look at the screen. So I can say, tell me about the third one.
The third one is Pho Con Lai, the Vietnamese restaurant located at 460 East William Street in San Jose. It's about 7.9 miles from you. It has 4 stars on Yelp based on 431 reviews. Today it's open from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. It's open right now.
Okay, and maybe I can ask, is it expensive?
It has $1 sign on Yelp. Quite affordable if you ask me.
Maybe I want to eat there and then go to the airport. I want to maybe take an Uber to the airport. So I would like to see how long it takes. So I can say, how long does it take to go from there to San Francisco airport?
It will take approximately 43 minutes to drive 34 miles from Pho Con Lai located at 460 East William Street in San Jose to San Francisco International Airport.
It asks me a question if it doesn't have enough information. So let's say I see a house that's $1 million and I would like to buy the house and I want to know if I can afford the monthly payment. So I can say, what is the monthly payment on $1 million home?
What is the down payment?
20%.
Okay, using a down payment of 20%. What is the mortgage period?
What is that?
The mortgage period is the length of time it takes you to pay off your entire mortgage. You can express it in either months or years. For example, you could say 30 years. What is the mortgage period?
30 years.
Okay, using a mortgage period of 30 years. What is the interest rate?
3.95%.
Okay, using an interest rate of 3.95%. Your monthly mortgage payment is $3,796.30.
Okay, so that was an example of a dialogue management when it asked me enough questions to calculate the mortgage for me. Now, I might learn all the parameters it needs, and maybe I choose not to go over the dialogue. Maybe I want to give it all the parameters at once, and that's okay. So I can say, what is the monthly payment on $1 million home with 20% down, paid over 30 years with a 4% interest rate?
Okay, using a mortgage period of 30 years, an interest rate of 4%, a home value of $1 million and a down payment of 20%. Your monthly mortgage payment is $3,819.32.
Now this can also be completely hands-free, so I can just leave it here and then talk to it with a wake-up phrase. Okay, Hound, what is the capital of South Korea?
The capital of South Korea is Seoul.
Okay, Hound, what about Japan?
The capital of Japan is Tokyo.
Okay, Hound, what is its population?
The population of Japan is 127,288,000.
Okay, Hound, what about its area?
The area of Japan is 145,882 square miles.
So as you can see, it can also carry dialogue. It remembers the context. Or I can ask you very complex questions like, what is the population and capital of Japan and China and their areas in square miles and square kilometers? And also tell me how many people live in India and what is the area code for Germany, France, and Italy?
The population is 127,288,000 for Japan, and 1,330,044,000 for China, and the capital is Tokyo for Japan, and Beijing for China. The area is 145,800.
I'm going to stop it because it's a very long answer and because I had a very long question. Okay, so I've shown you a demonstration of Hound, powered by Houndify, and I'm going to switch back to my slides and continue. Okay, so that was deep meaning understanding in action. You know, it's also one more thing that's very important is just being fast and accurate and smart is not enough. To really make your platform useful, it needs to have a lot of data behind it. So it needs to have a lot of knowledge domains and knowledge graphs and services integrated so that it can be of service. So it's like a very, very smart person who hasn't read a lot of books is not very helpful, is not very valuable. So it's important to prepare these domains, and that's another thing that we've been working on for many years. We have the largest number of knowledge domains, 6 times more than Siri, if you compare them together. Now, if you build a product with Houndify, you can differentiate. But you can also tap into the work that we've done. So when you create a product, you can enable any subset of our public domains, for example, weather or restaurants or stock market or sports or flight status. So those are the public domains that we create. And then you can enable any subset of private domains. And these are domains that only you have access to. And you can also very quickly add your own custom commands. And these are, we prepared this very carefully for the audience that is not an expert. You don't even have to be a sophisticated engineer to be able to use it. So you can combine any combination of public domains, private domains, and custom commands. If you do add custom commands, these custom commands support speech to meaning, which means if you add a new vocabulary, a new word that doesn't exist and nobody has ever heard of it before, it automatically gets added to our speech recognizer. And in the process of speech to meaning, it gets recognized. We have an architecture that we call collective AI. And I expect that over the next years, you will hear that term a lot, collective AI. Now, we all have this dream, which is we want to have this global AI that knows everything. It can answer any question and it can perform any task. And no one has that today. And it will be a while before we have it. But we think we have an architecture that helps us get there faster. And we call this the extensible platform for collective AI. Now, let me explain the difference between collective AI and other AIs. So companies like Amazon or Siri, when you add skills or domains to the platform, these skills don't interact with each other. They are independent of each other. That means when you make linear contribution, its understanding grows linearly. So if you add 1 and then 1 and then 1, you end up with 3. If you add 10 and then 10 and 10, you end up with 30. So linear input gives you linear output. But with collective AI, because our domains interact with each other, linear input can result in exponential increase because the domains interact with each other. And we have a very well-made video that explains our vision of collective AI that is on our Houndify platform. It's about 4 minutes, so if you're interested, I encourage you to view it later in your own time. So to summarize, we have a platform, one of the only platforms that provides voice AI to the world, and we We don't have a lot of competitors. That's the good news, because it takes many years to build what we have built. But the bad news for us is that our competitors are very, very scary and big. So companies like Google and Apple, they would compete with us. But we are very confident that we have superior technology and we have friendly terms, which helps us with adoption. So speech to meaning, for example, that gives us the highest speed and accuracy is very unique to our platform. Basic NLU, or basic natural language understanding, can be done by others. So everybody can tell you, the weather or some restaurant search, but deep meaning understanding that allows us to understand complex conversation is very unique to us. We are one of the only platforms, but we are definitely the only collective AI platform, and we allow our partners to maintain their brand and users. We are a one-stop shop, which means we provide everything that you would need. We have both embedded and cloud support and hybrid architecture that supports both. And we are one of the only independent and agnostic companies that provides AI in the world. And again, our mission is summarized in 2 words, which is soundify everything. Thank you very much for your time, and that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Keyvan.